new year. Again, good evening. I am Jocelyn Turner. Welcome to pauseforthetruth.com. I hope your 2022 year has started off on a good note. We are excited to have some wonderful guests with us tonight to talk about the new year and what are we doing. Last week, oh, forgive me. Let me go ahead and bring in our co-host, Dr. Rogers Kane. Dr. Kane, how are you this evening?
I'm doing great, Miss Turner. Just because I'm late, you don't have to punish me.
I know, right? I was totally dismissing you as though you were not even present. Sorry about that,
It's
Doc.
all good. We good.
So, Dr. Kane, we had a real good discussion last week. We had a couple of life coaches on talking
Right.
about how people want to do some things differently in their life and sometimes not sure which direction to go. Well, tonight we have guests who are going to talk about what they have done and in terms of making changes in their life. And the topic for today is New Year's resolutions or pandemic changes or something like that. I
Yeah,
don't have it in front of me, but
it's something like that.
essentially people have made changes in their life and is a result of it being a new year and they're saying, you know what, I'm going to do something different this year. Or is it because when our guests made the changes that they made in their life, I know it's not a change as of 2022, but in past years, were those changes made as a result of a resolution, or was it a lifelong goal, which is why they are doing what they're doing today? And I might add, they're successfully doing what they are doing today as a result of their efforts. So I'm gonna first introduce my friend. I guess we're friends. I don't know. He's cooked me a couple of good meals, so I guess when someone cook you a couple of good meals, I guess then they're your friend, and that is Chef Amadeus, world-renowned Chef Amadeus, celebrity Chef Amadeus. How are you doing this evening, Chef?
I am doing absolutely wonderful. I'm loving the show, today's topic, because I made those changes and I've helped other people make those same changes.
Fantastic. Well, I look forward to the discussion. Also joining us is my nephew Jamal Green. And no, I know we don't usually make it about family, but why not have the opportunity to brag on family for a change? This young man is doing some good things, and I want you to hear this story. Jamal, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing good.
Wonderful, wonderful. Jamal told me, Auntie, I'm kind of shy with this. I'm like, no, yeah, but you have a good story to tell, and we want folks to hear your story. And we're also gonna have another guest joining us, and they're having some technical difficulties. As soon as we get them into the show, we will bring her in the show. So now let's start the discussion tonight because New Year brings a new you sometimes for some of us. And the changes that we make are sometimes related to things that we've always wanted to do, or maybe it's because it's a result of the things that are happening at that moment. Some people like to set goals rather than New Year's resolutions. The goals you set for the year ahead should be determined by what's important to you and what you want your life to look like in the future. I know that's how I think. So, Chef, I'm going to start with you. Do you set goals or do you set resolutions for the year?
I set goals um, because I think a goal is it's the journey, and you learn things along your journey. And at the end of that journey, you have this feeling that you accomplished something, you learn something along that journey. It's not just jumping out there and saying, well, I want to do this, but you get unfocused on that journey. And for me, the goals I've set, especially for this new year, has been like amazing goals that started actually 2 months ago, about 2 3 months ago. Um, and it has to do with my diving into more of my mental health as well as my physical health, because in my industry stress is really really big. And so because of my health conditions, I try to be as stress free as possible. So now, yeah, this year is going to be kind of fun. I get to do those goals that I wanted to do and make it and monetize from those goals.
Yeah, and I like that you said you are, you responded to some things based on your health issues, and thank you for admitting that your health issues, mental health and physical health, is what's prompted you to make changes. And by the way, I can see a whole lot of folks, myself inclusive, who will benefit from those things that you've made, the changes that you've made for your own life. Jamal, how about you? Do you set goals or resolutions for the new year?
Um, I set goals more so like what I want to achieve during the year, business wise, just expanding, helping others, and also trying to get into just open eyes to like with the pandemic, just trying to push others to get into the business, being in business for themselves also.
So, when we talk about goals, I know last week we talked about things being smart, and oh man, I can't believe I just thought about it, and now I've just Dr. Kane. Can you believe that I have drawn a blank? I mean, just in terms of those smart goals, and this is where I need my buddy online because she'll help me out in terms of what the acronym for SMART, and the very first letter of SMART, I can't remember what it is. Oh boy, I'll think of it in a minute, but I know what the other ones are. The MART, if I can only get that brain freeze from keeping me from the SMART. But basically, being able to, when you set goals for yourself, that they are SMART goals because they're measurable, attainable, realistic, and that you set some type of timetable in order to achieve those goals. So as you all were both planning whatever your goals are for the year, do you feel that each time you set those goals at the beginning of the year that you are achieving them, or do you find yourself falling short? And
Well, for me,
how do you jumpstart?
for me, this, let's just say 2021 started. Um, it was a lull. It was a low, and the things that got me jump started back in was like trying to figure out happiness. What's going to make me happy? Not everybody else around me. What's going to make me happy? And then I had to stick to that to say, nope, not going to do it. Why? Doesn't make me happy. Um, because I always tell people that, somebody paid you $100 an hour to do a job, but you sucked at it. You only gonna make like $200. But if somebody paid you $10 an hour to do something you enjoy doing, you'll make $1 million doing it because you don't want to stop doing it. So
it
you
takes
have to
about 2 hours to figure out you don't know what you're doing.
2 hours, like, you know what? I'm good. I'm good. But the big thing for me as it got closer to the end of 2021, I started to really hammer in on what what makes me happy. And for me, cooking makes me happy. But I want to cook where it's different from everybody else. So I stand out and I put forth this effort that people look at me like, wow, I never thought of doing that. Like, so I started doing a lot more camping and a lot more outdoor cooking with my cast iron pans, my Dutch ovens. Now I'm teaching people how to camp, teaching people how to cook outdoors. And it's been one of these things where now I get paid to go camping and cook outdoors. I have hunters that I tap into the hunters. They go hunting, but they don't have nobody at the house to make sure they have a hot meal when they get back from out there in the cold hunting those deers. And so I've been out hunting with some hunters. Well, I don't go hunting. I cook the food for them. And for me, that's relaxing around a fire at night. And get to see the sunset, the sun rises, the way the leaves are. And for me, that's very calming. Being in the woods, it's calming. You're away from everybody else. You're away from everything, and it's just I was Christmas. I was camping in Alabama. No electricity, no power, no toilet, no nothing, and it was relaxing for me. But that's me. You can't
Yeah,
every.
Chef, because that sounds stressful to me.
But right, but what I say, what makes me happy doesn't make everybody else happy, and that's what
Yeah.
people have to understand. Don't worry about what other people say. Well, that's stupid. I didn't ask you to do this. This is what I'm doing. Until you get that mindset of, listen, this is me. This is. I always tell people, you can always join my me time, but you cannot interrupt my me time.
Makes sense. So, the pandemic brought about a whole lot of changes for people. It made people redirect what was happening in their life. A lot of people may have had to just simply start anew based on having had some life, just very hard life changes happening to them. So, Jamal, let's talk about you, talk to you a moment, and welcome Dr. Lorene Husband. How are you this evening?
Oh, I am doing fantastic,
Well, thank you for joining us. And Lorene and I have a joke. She called when I said, "Hello, Dr. Lorene Husband," you'll say what?
Dr. Turner.
I love it. Dr. Turner. One day that's going to happen, Dr. Turner. So let me ask you all a question. And Jamal, I'm going to start with you. What have you heard people wanting to make changes about in their lives? Health, work, relationships, etc., even a job, and you can even talk about yourself. What have you heard? And you don't have to get personal, but and I'm asking you because no disrespect to our other guests, but you're the youngster on the panel tonight. So what are you hearing that people felt that they wanted to jumpstart or change anew in their life this year?
Well, going back to what Chef was saying in some way, happiness. A lot of people I feel like, are trying to find happiness nowadays. Like, no matter how you look at it, you can make $1 million, but if you're not happy, that $1 million means nothing to you at the end of the day. Um, bit, I think a lot of people are working on. Some people I hear a lot talking about business wise, like doing their own thing, like because the pandemic has opened. In example with me, I was a automotive mechanic, went to school for it and everything, and when the pandemic started, my job it just shut down. I was out of work for like 3 or 4 months. That's what pushed me and drove me to never want to be in that situation again. Like I didn't want to be in that position to where I went to school, work hard to be in this position. And then when we got back to work, it was like 5 hours a day, 5 days a week. It was like basically part-time work. And you only brought like 2 workers back. So we were doing, and it was a staff of 6. So I was doing, me and another tech were doing work for 6 people with less hours, and then they were cutting benefits and everything. So that's something that like was an eye opener to me, that I never want to be in that position again. I want to
So
have,
it was at that point you decided to open up your own business.
yeah, that's correct. That I wanted to have control of my happiness, not be stressed. Going back to the happiness part, like it didn't make me happy because my home life, my family life is happy, but and I am a aggressive saver. So I was prepared, but as far as just being out of work and not knowing what the future held, um, it had a lot. Did for me.
Hey Jamal, did that make you any more? Did you have any bouts or touching lightly with some depression or depressive mood
Well,
being in that position?
of course, if you like, I'm one of those rainy day people, so I save aggressively. But and then pros and cons to that is when you see it start to go away, you see the money just fade away monthly, you start getting in that, you start thinking like, okay, what's my next step? And it helped me out actually because I've always wanted to run my own business. But when you're working for somebody else, I always like to say it, and is you're working for somebody else, making them rich, and um, it basically got to a point where I could not focus. But being out of work for 3 to 4 months, I was all in, and that's one of the things that I feel holds some people back. It's just like take that leap of faith at some point. Yeah, it might happen because of the pandemic, but if you don't take that leap of faith, then you'll never be able to put your all into it to get started. I feel that's just
Well, I mean, this is a risky business, so you
yeah,
have to be willing to take the risk.
yeah.
Hmm.
And I like what
Hey,
you said,
Lorraine.
Jamal. You went to college for a particular profession and you were working it, but then the pandemic happened. I know I've talked to some people who've been trying to find a pandemic proof profession. Do you all think that a pandemic proof profession actually exists other than Dr. Kane as a physician?
I
Yes,
Cleaning,
it does.
What'd you
It
say,
does.
Lorraine?
cleaning.
Cleaning?
I
Yes, because actually a lot of businesses opened up in the cleaning industry because we needed to clean a lot. So folks have figured out how to be professional cleaners and have literally cleaned up a lot of millions of dollars.
Hmm.
And regardless of the disease, that's always going to be a necessary service.
Yeah, whether or not it's a cleaning up behind a storm, a flood, a busted pipe, a lazy man, that's always going to be business for that one.
I
Yeah.
think the other thing that is, and you have to work it. Like for my industry, this year, this month is my 5-year anniversary of my company. And the first thing my accountant told me
Congratulations.
was, "You made it through the pandemic." And people always ask me, how did you make it through being a private chef versus working in a restaurant, anything like that? Well, I had to step back, get to my base, and move forward. So I started doing virtual cooking classes. I started doing more outdoor cooking because people wanted to be outdoors. So as of lately, a lot of Black folks have been going outdoors and they want to learn how to camp, how to take their RV out. That's what's been going on. And so I switched from, I ain't gonna say I switched, but I added to what I've been doing to cooking outdoors now. So I get a lot of requests for knowing how to cook in Dutch ovens outside. And then, of course, I train them not just cooking outdoors, but getting ready for hurricane season. So if the power goes out, what do you do? How do you make sure that you can survive? So knowledge has gotten me through this whole pandemic. So instead of it being a physical cooking, it started to become a mental cooking for everybody, answering their questions. How to cook seafood. That's the biggest thing people want to do now. They want to eat healthy and they love seafood, but they don't know how to cook it. So I do a lot of cooking classes about seafood, how to cook seafood, and how to cook it healthy.
Mm.
And people come to me because they like one of my spices called um, um, pepper, a citrus pepper. It's no salt in it, so they want to eat healthy. They want to exercise. So when you go camping, you go hiking, you go out there in nature and things like that. And I can cook here in Jacksonville, go to Atlanta, go to Seattle, go anywhere and cook something. The only difference is you got to put your pride aside and have to take a lower position, but at least you're working somewhere.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah,
So
that's interesting. And it sounds like Chef and Jamal, you took your passion for something and turned it around to be a business for you. Jamal, you had to pivot once your job situation changed, even though I probably knew all along that you wanted to own your own business, right? You just didn't think it was going to happen that fast, this soon.
Yeah, I always wanted to be in business for myself. Honestly, the field that I chose was not I didn't I have an uncle that's actually in the non-medical transportation field. And going back to what you were saying about essential jobs during the pandemic, I figured like, people will always need a ride. It's almost like I'm not sure if you all are familiar with it. Non-medical transportation, it's like Uber for medical patients for the most part. So I get them to and from their appointments, and you get you it's like a contract through the government through Medicaid. So with that being said, it's more so like I feel like it was in so many ways this business was a pandemic proof business because people are going to still need to get to and from the hospital. Everybody doesn't have vehicles or transportation to get to and from the hospital. So even during the pandemic believe it or not, during the pandemic is when I grew my business and grew my clientele.
Wow, and that's something. Lorene, what about you? What are some things that you've heard people saying about how they have been impacted by the pandemic but have had to make some changes in their life?
Am I still muted?
No, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, so in my work, I get to hear from a lot of single mothers, and for the most part, most of them had to, well, when the whole world shut down, they too, their businesses shut down, so they're having to figure out what can they do that they too, like Jamal, will not be in that position when other people are determining their fate. So and also, how can they take advantage once they go back to work of some of the benefits that their work environment offers that will help them to be more pandemic ready, so to speak. So if it's college education, does their business offer college benefits, and how can they access it? So it's pretty much that kind of things. And then people realizing how we as Americans, we do not save enough money. We're not Jamal, and therefore people are pretty much living paycheck to
Okay.
paycheck, and that exposed their vulnerabilities. And then while we were still trying to figure out unemployment in the state of Florida, we were trying to figure out how the federal benefits that were coming to the state, how they were going to be able to access them. And believe it or not, the federal benefits that came to Florida in 2020, the state of Florida is still processing them, and they have yet to get into the hands of people.
So did you hear people talking that they thought that were they surprised that their job was impacted by the pandemic? Did they think that they were in a recession proof job?
Yes, they did. And
Yeah.
then, for example, if you think about the restaurant industry or people who are in the food industry, like chef, those people are surprised when all these mandates all of a sudden, and we were in a very thriving environment as a country, all of a sudden, I mean, without pretty much any notice, you're getting mandates to shut down. So they people did not have time. It's not even like a hurricane where you can prepare a few days ahead of time. It was, went to work, and the next day you're told, we're shutting down. So they were surprised, but I don't know why. Well, I understand why they were surprised, but people were surprised and are still surprised. And like you've noticed, Jocelyn, a lot of industries are still struggling to get people to go back to work. And the level of people doing what Jamal did and create their own entrepreneurial opportunities is rising in this country as a result, because people want to be in control of their own fates.
And I'm glad.
The surprising part to that, well, it's not really surprising, but you're right, Lorene, and one of the big things that the ironicity with it is that it can happen any day again, any day at the flash of the moment, particularly when we're being threatened by pandemics or the threat of pandemics. And we really hadn't gotten through this one yet. And a lot of it is because we either don't know how to handle pandemics, which there seems to be a lot of ignorance that first round in terms of how it was handled, or you don't. There's some other secondary reason why they're doing it. I don't know. I just know it was so badly handled, and that unless we have our act together, the next pandemic, we're going to be right back in the same boat.
So, Dr. Kane, I know although you're the co-host of this show, you are a practicing physician, family practice physician. Did you see throughout the pandemic that there are a lot of people, when you asked the question of one of our guests earlier in terms of Jamal, when you asked Jamal, did he experience that sense of depression? Did you find that many of your patients were depressed during the pandemic after losing jobs, homes, relationships, or whatever, or loved
There,
ones even to the pandemic?
there was a lot of depression and anxiety. I mean, as Jamal said, even though he was a super saver, and he had tried to make sure he had enough monies around to be able to weather the storm. At some point, he started looking at his monies and became somewhat anxious before he got depressed. Became somewhat anxious about continuing to be able to pay his bills and to feed his family. And then when they don't open up the way you would like for them to, or just, and that when I say like for them to, I don't mean as if it's um, um, as if it's just a benefit. I mean, gravy. It's just so you can survive. If it doesn't open up for you to be able to survive the way you want it or need to, then that can be pretty depressing. Because especially as men, I'm out of the old school, and as a man, I feel like it's my responsibility to make sure my household functions. That is my job to keep my kids and my wife and I don't have a dog, but my family fed and protected. And when that looks to be threatened, it can cause a lot of anxiety in me as a man. And if you really feel that your hands are tied, then it may cause go down that road of depression as well.
Thank you. And I'm sure a lot of people, and I like how our guests, with Chef and Jamal talked about Chef, even he was already in business, so he had to pivot and say, and even you, Dr. Kane, when I came by your office, or even you mentioned that you were actually seeing patients from the parking lot. So a lot of people even had to pivot in
Yeah.
the way that they were doing work. And earlier today, I was watching the news, and it showed that our mayor in our city tested positive for COVID.
Right.
And so you think about when people are, situations like that happen, then it makes people feel that anxiety and figure it out. What's my next move? What do I need to do now? What happens next for me and my family? So Jamal, when you lost, not lost, but when your job started to to change, how difficult was it for you to say, I need to do something different? I need to bounce back, because you could have literally gone in a totally different direction. What was your motivation to say, it's time for me to start my business?
Well, it was more so of how everything transpired. Like it was just it's all of a sudden you went from having a promising career to no work, and it was just going through that alone. It made me it it just put me in a different mind frame as far as going. Hold on, I'm sorry. I'm
No, you're
uh
fine, but yeah, no, you're fine.
Maybe
Take
put
your
you in
time.
your survivalist mode.
yeah, yeah, it put me in a different mind frame. Like just the
Because you had
main
a
thing.
family. You had a
Yeah,
family, and you had
I
to
had
think of
a
it
family.
wasn't just for yourself.
Yeah, and I just did not. I just the main thing is I just did not want to let someone have that kind of control over me anymore.
Yeah.
Just period. Like that's for somebody to just cut you, and then like I said, it even went for so more that it got to a point where you brought me back to work to when you needed me, not for the sake of my family, and I just that didn't sit right with me. So it was just at some point I felt like I just wasn't going back. I had already made up in my mind like the next time they call me back, I'm not going back because you're not going to use me to benefit you. But at the end of the day, you didn't check on me any to see if I was okay during the pandemic. You didn't make sure my family was okay or anything. Like it was just okay. I need you at work now, so come to work.
Yeah.
And, and then a month later is okay. We're gonna let somebody else go back to work. So now you can go back to we don't care what you go back to doing, but we're gonna let somebody else work. So it was like I didn't feel the happiness or the love in the workplace anymore.
Nor appreciate it. By the way, somebody just posted, I noticed that more young folks do not like the pressure of working on a job, but are still making the decision to start an entrepreneur venture or businesses. Jamal, do you have other friends, your peers or family members who are deciding, have you motivated others to start their own business?
Well, that's what being in the non-medical transportation field, you get the gateway is you getting a contract with um the government, basically Medicaid. So I am the gateway to help others start their business. So whenever I hire someone, I always tell them that I don't want you to want to work for me. I want you to, if you like this field, let me show you and help you and guide you to be in the same position that I am in, because it's an up and coming field for the most part. I had never really heard of it 5 years ago, not non-medical transportation. So I really didn't know. I just thought that Jacksonville had like JTA where they go pick the patients up, but there are private owners that actually do it. So, and it's a growing field. So I try to encourage everyone that is employed under me, get your LLC, because it's not like they're basically subcontracted through me. So it's not hard. They just have to go through the steps to and actually want it. They go through the steps and actually want to do their own business. I don't mind them working under me, subcontracted, but my ultimate goal is for everyone that I hire to end up being in the same position that I'm in.
JT and Jamal and everyone else, one of the things, Jamal, you're absolutely correct, that is an up and growing business. It was going to be up and growing even before the pandemic, because a lot of us baby boomers are getting old, and we're not going to be driving, and trying to get back and forth to the doctor can be somewhat worrisome, and then have some safe transportation is great. Pandemic kicked in, and it just happened faster than it would have over the next couple of years, as even the younger baby boomers are getting too old to drive.
Yeah, I agree with you, because you got to think non-medical transportation. It's not necessarily catering to COVID patients, so
Right.
forth. You got to think about, you have dialysis patients.
Right.
A lot of the patients I have are dialysis patients. You have some substance abuse patients that go every day too. So you have different things that people go for, even physical therapy. So it's like a lot of different ones you cater to, and then you have the old folks homes, as I would call
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Not being funny.
Like where I live at.
No,
We
no,
resemble that.
it's funny. But you have the old folks home, and they go there, and they don't have a way from their doctor's appointment.
Right.
So
No, the
what
senior citizen centers and
senior citizen center. So there you
adult
go.
living facilities and
Look,
those places like that can use the transportation.
Yeah,
Nursing
but you know
homes.
what? Jamal, I think what I like about what he said, and then listen to the feedback Lorene said she got from some of the folks that she's talked to, and then hearing Chef, you start a business either because of passion, as Chef has said, or need, as Jamal has said. So people, I hope our listeners are thinking, what is it that I can do based on what needs I see in my community, what my community needs, or even what is it that's been a passion for mine. All my life, people, not well, most of my life, people have jokingly said to me, "You sure love to talk." And I said, well, yeah, hopefully I have something worthwhile to say. And lo and behold, I never imagined a year ago that I would be co-hosting a podcast, right? And
I
so,
did.
and that leads me to another point that sometimes we don't see in ourselves what we have the capability of doing. It does take some coaching and mentoring by others to say, hey, have you thought about doing this, or have you thought about doing that? And I like what Jamal said, that when people come to work for him, he's teaching and coaching them and training them on how to grow their own business.
And that's the right
So,
thing to do. I
yeah.
do that with some of my cooks. When they want to work with me on a regular basis, I say, listen, go get your LLC, go start your own business. That way I can pay your company. But the great thing I also tell them is this: having your own business, you can do things and it benefits you. So when you see that shiny knife that costs you $150, you could chalk that up to your business. But if you don't have a business, you just spend $150. It don't come back to you at the end of the year. I'm always telling the young cooks, expand your horizon, because they're like, well, I love cooking soul food. I'm like, that is amazing that you love cooking soul food, but expand your horizon, because now you've been put in the box. So no one's going to come to you and say, can you do vegan? Can you do vegetarian? Can you do seafood? Can you do things like this? If you're stuck in the box, like for me, I've done virtual cooking classes with vegans, for I do a TV show with diabetics, so I'm in different holes. So I'm not being pigeonholed to be, you're this color, so this is what you cook. That's all you're really known for. So if you have a passion to cook everything. There's too many flavors out there around the world for you to be stuck in one.
So chef, you like a portfolio. You diversified, huh?
Yeah. Oh yeah. You have to, because like I always tease the young cooks. They're like, well, loving to cook and knowing where food comes from and things like that. They like, well, how does that help me? I said, well, one, it helped me on the Food Network. Number two, now I do not just sushi, I do yakitori, and I have my own yakitori grill and all these things here. Well, most people aren't doing those because they don't know about them. They just think just go on the stove and cook. Well, let's take cultures and play with those flavors. So yakitori is literally chicken on a stick, but I've taken it further and I've done like steaks. I've done collard greens on the stick, and they were like, dude, this is just different for us. So that's why you have to diversify yourself. Because when I was in Seattle, they were doing soul food there, but I was doing it differently. And then I had to learn how to make it healthy, because a lot of folks out there love it, but they're like, I can't eat this every day, but I love it. So you just have to learn how to diversify your skill set. Like I said, going outside, that was, people like, well, I'm going camping, I'm doing road trips. So I teach them how to go camping.
So Lorraine, let me ask you a question. How do we know the difference between a business and a hobby?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, if it has to be something that can generate money, and one of the things that you can do beforehand, before you decide it's going to be a business, is to convene a group of people and get some ideas as to whatever it is you're trying to sell. If you package it into a business, are they willing to buy it? And if they are, then especially if you continue to expand your networks, not just people who care about you and are willing to lie to you, but really expand your horizons so you can hear from other people outside of your, comfort zone.
We
So
kind of
Lorraine,
knew that the truth be told, it's been slated for some time that America was, become more of a service industry, not so much of the employer-employee relationship that we know about, that it was going to progress to that, especially in terms of automation and with the technology as it begins to continue to turn. So it was going to be, the job industry was going to be about what service, more of a service industry. So with that being said, when more people may be facing, I think the pandemic just brought it on quicker, but more people be facing unemployment. It kind of did the people a favor and allow them to cut down on their workforce. What will anybody can answer this, what can we tell someone who wants to start their own business, where to start? How would you ask them to get started, or tell them to get started?
Well, the Urban League offers free entrepreneurship classes, so that's one place that they could go to do that. And they can also go to the Small Business Center at UNF to get some coaching as well. But there's a lot of free online resources. If you just Google how to be an entrepreneur on a budget, you will get tons and tons of resources. Where one that I was looking at is, it just says if you have $40, if you have $100, this is what you can do to maximize that and continue adding on to it. How do you do grassroots marketing? How do it takes you through the steps.
Right.
So that's easy. And to that also, Dr. Kane, one of the things you and Jocelyn know about me is I like to read new things and learn new things. So I was learning that the other day, the African American community in the United States is a $500 billion industry.
That's right.
And most of those billions are not going to people who look like us.
Right.
Those billions are going to other individuals who come into our neighborhoods and establish businesses. And we continue to frequent those businesses, even if they're offering us substandard services.
Exactly.
So one of the things that individuals can do is to figure out, how do I, if let's say you are into hair and nails, how do I provide a better business for my customers who live in my neighborhoods that, would likely make money? And it's going to make money, especially if it's a product that your girlfriends, your sisters, your mothers use. So that's that. And then we love to eat. So, talking to chef, how can you establish a good food business that doesn't currently exist? So, in my work, I work for Feeding Northeast Florida. One of the things we try to do is, when we have a luncheon, we try to figure out how we can purchase from the neighborhood we're at to get it catered. And in a lot of our zip codes, we don't have any restaurants that are authentic, non-chain restaurants that we can get people to deliver food for a catering event. So there's an opportunity, and how much we love to cook at church functions. So that's a rife opportunity for somebody to develop a business. So
I think one of the things in this industry that bothers me a lot is a lot of folks going to the food business to be famous and not good, because of the Food Network and all these cooking shows. That's where they want to be. They don't want to learn their craft. They just want to be famous. And I always tell them, you got to be. I'd rather be good than famous, because just because you're famous don't mean you're good. And if the young ones would, let someone mentor them, because one of the first questions I ask everybody that comes, I do consulting work with in the industry, I was asking, do you have a culinary mentor? It's like, I don't need that because I know how to cook and da. It has nothing to do with your cooking. It has to do with the business side of what you're doing. Restaurants don't close because of bad food. They close because of bad business. And if you haven't went out there and did the research, went to seminars and all these other things that UNF has, the SBA and all these things, it's out there for you. But you want to be an island. You cannot be an island. You got to use resources around you. So, and be able to do something that stands out. We don't need another soul food restaurant. We don't need another barbecue place. When I played golf on the north side, the guy I was playing it, our first thing was, let's go get something healthy to eat. The healthiest thing around there was what? Subway. So if you're going to open up something that's needed, not that's wanted.
Yeah. And Lorene, I'm sorry, I forgot to ask you earlier, and we were talking about life changes and resolutions. I started the show. I know you were having some technical difficulties, but have you made any life changes or New Year's resolutions this year or last year even?
Oh, I have made all the above, Jocelyn. So when the pandemic first started, I was working as the director of strategic expansion at Operation New Hope, which is an amazing organization. And but seeing and hearing the needs for food in our community when all the shelves, at the grocery stores were empty, the CEO of Feeding Northeast Florida reached out to me and asked me to join their team to help them during this time. And based that was based on my previous work in the food system, and I've been doing food system work since I was at the Department of Health with you, Jocelyn. And but at the same time, I also started my own consulting company because I saw a great need, especially for nonprofits and individuals, to help them to build capacity to be successful. So I have been helping nonprofits with strategic planning, just how to run an effective organization, how to be successful. Um, to be able to seek federal funding or private funding, to be able to pass DCF auditing processes, things that most people don't take into consideration. And also just to be able to speak to our neighbors and our community residents the way they should be spoken to with dignity, and to take that information and help to create strategies that are successful in our neighborhoods. But with that also, I took COVID as a sign that I also needed to work on my own health. And even though I have always been a pretty healthy person, I exercise, I run, I was a runner. And then, but my knees started hurting, my bones are hurting, and like Dr. King keeps talking about us aging individuals, I needed to figure out what can I do differently. And I'm 54, and my mom passed away at 54, and about 14 years ago. And so that sat with me. Here is this pandemic, and I was a young person, so I thought, Dr. Kane, who I was a young person who had a bag of medications I was taking to manage my pain, to manage my depression, and something needed to give. So, Jocelyn, as you know, I started intermittent fasting and really started looking at the science of fasting and how our bodies can heal themselves. So, no offense to chef, but as a people, we are eating too much and it's killing us. And there's a lot of science, and there's a lot of physicians who are now saying the pharmaceutical industry, as well as the processed food industry and even agriculture, has their, and I know at a previous conversation I educated our viewers that the farming industry in the United States and the world is owned by five corporations. Their main drivers is to make money at our behest. And we need to take our own health in our own hands and research what kept our people, especially people of color, when everything was against us, what kept us alive and thriving. Our diet. And also, we did not eat 6 meals a day. We did not eat 3 meals and three snacks. Most of us ate 2 meals if we were lucky, and one good meal at the end of the day. And that kept us. And that is the way I have started eating. And as a result, Jocelyn, I went from taking 12 medications to where now I'm taking zero medications.
Wow.
And my depression is gone, and all my pain is gone, and I'm back to running again.
That's awesome. I mean, that is Dr. Kane, you're muted.
I was gonna say, I think that's excellent, and she has the right idea. Even though, I mean, we didn't eat the way we eat right now. Initially, it was by default because Mr. Charlie didn't want to give us any food to eat. So, the black women that were there, these black, my great 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 grandmother, and her peers, they made do with what they had. They knew what they needed to, that they had a bunch of kids to feed. Thanks again to Mr. Charlie. But and they managed to feed them from the land and what was given to them. They usually just gave them the leftovers. I mean, because we never would have thought about eating a pig foot if we had the rest of the pig to eat. You know, you see a pig walk around there, I'm gonna eat that foot. Nope, that didn't happen. We did it out of necessity. However, we also, it also allowed us to eat this non-processed foods and stuff of that nature, more healthier foods. They might have been fatty to a degree, but it still was the right combination of fat and starches and carbs and protein that our mothers knew was what was best for us. And we got to get back to that, get away from this Western culture of eating everything that they throw at us with a little sugar sprinkled on it or a little salt sprinkled on it. Because those are the big two things that people, taste buds seem to want to stick with, either a bunch of sugar or a bunch of salt.
But Chef said he has us covered by producing salt-free spices. So,
and I agree. I love that idea.
But here's the thing, though.
It's on the one shelf.
But Doc, here's the thing. So I was doing a vending event on the north side of town, over by Cleveland Road and Edgewood. And then the ladies, the elderly ladies that came by and was like, when I told them it was salt free, they were like, wow, I've never even heard of this. So one of the spices I have, the citrus pepper, I made it for my mom because she loves lemon pepper, everything, wings, seafood, everything. But she couldn't have it because it was too much sodium, the one they had in the store. So I created one for my mom, and everybody loves it because they can cook it and it has flavor to it. Now it does have some sugar in there, but I think the salt is the biggest thing because of where it is. And I always tell folks this: if you break down what you eat and the amount of sodium that's in it, you'll be surprised of how much salt you take in. So reading labels is a big thing. And when I tell people I read labels, I can tell you how much sodium is in the candy that I eat. So those are the type of things that and think about this. Let's just say you go out and you do grab that meal from one of these fast food restaurants. Look at the sodium content in that, and that's for one meal. That's not including the breakfast you had or the dinner you're going to have or the snack in between. So that's a lot of sodium. And then you're drinking things that have sodium in it. So like one of my things I'm doing this year is drinking more water versus, even when I'm having dinner or anything like that, get a glass of water versus getting a sweet tea or anything like that. Now, granted, I love sweet tea. No, don't give it up. But I'm just saying, put in that more water in there, because the other thing about it too is when you do eat that big meal and you have those fries and all that other stuff, then you're going to drink something that has more calories on you. So I drink water because I put some lemon in it or some of the water flavoring to it, and it gives me that what I'm missing, what I'm thriving for. Those are the type of things, and just take those steps by steps. Like I like chicken sandwiches. I like spicy chicken sandwiches. That's my thing. So, and I didn't want to go to the store and buy them because there's so much salt in those vegan dishes. So I went to my buddy's place, the vegan spot, Crave Vegan. I went to them and I purchased these chicken patties. They're vegan chicken patties. And I'm gonna tell you, it was worth it. Every time I have a craving for a spicy chicken sandwich, instead of me running out to to somewhere to get it, I just come home and make it myself. I know what's in it. It's all vegetables. I know what the sodium content is. And those are the type of people that everybody should know are people like Crave Vegan, because they have no problem helping you eat what you're used to eating, but done a little healthier.
Yeah, one thing that Lorene has suggested is, which is so true, as she mentioned, she and I worked at the health department. Unfortunately, in a lot of communities, especially in communities of color, diabetes, cancer, Alzheimer's disease, autoimmune disease, all of those things are very prevalent in our community. And having a better understanding of what we eat, making sure we engage in some physical activity, all of that is very important. And considering the fasting and clean eating. So, but that's going to be another conversation. I want to, as we are nearing the end of the show, I do want to ask you, is there anything that you want to experience more as a result of the pandemic, be it traveling or spending more time with family? What have you thought about as we talk about, we started the show talking about resolutions and goals, and each of you have talked about the things that been passionate for you, things you've moved into as a result of some health issues or maybe because of the pandemic and losing your job. But as we near the end of the show, what are some things that you see yourself wanting to do? And as a lot of conversations have happened, as I turn on the television, people are seeing life different now. So what are some things, and I'll start with you, Lorene. Is there anything that you see that you'd like to change or do more of or experience more as a result of the pandemic?
I would like to continue helping people to understand how truly we are all interconnected, and that your actions impact my actions. And in this case, it's important to me that we try to all live a life that ensures that our great, 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 great grandchildren will still have an earth to go back to.
Thank you. Jamal, how about you? Is there anything that you would like to, more things you'd like to experience or do
Well,
differently even?
not expect, just basically just help, like Miss Husband said, Dr. Husband said, I would like to get back to just helping. I want to try to help people. So in the case of another pandemic or anything catastrophic happens, that we're more prepared for it, and we can just helping our people be more in control of their lives, not letting somebody else dictate when they can be off of work, or it just all in all aspects. Like I feel like when you're in control more, it brings more happiness to you, honestly, because you're
Well,
you're
one
more in
thing that
control.
Yeah, one thing you said, Jamal, and I'm sorry to cut you off, that I definitely
It's
want
okay.
probably want to have you talk about more, and you kind of skated through it, and we don't have to get into it tonight. Is one of the things that you said that was very, very important, that if our guests did not hear, you are an ultra saver prior to the pandemic. And that's something that many of us don't do. Lorene and I have talked about that, and she mentioned that when we did the show on um, global warming, the how we spend more than what we really need. And so we will talk as we continue the conversations about different topics that are of importance. We will and we should talk about financial health, the importance of saving and living with less, and be it whatever that is. So thank you, Jamal, for planting that seed and helping us to understand the importance of having that discussion again in the future, the importance of saving. So, Jeff, how about you? What are some things that you'd like to experience or do different as a result of the pandemic?
For me, the biggest thing is being taking care of yourself, making sure that everybody that you're sustainable, and that's financially. If something goes wrong, you don't freak out because or wait on someone else to come and help you out. You at least know how to get you know, out of that situation, and have yourself in a circle of people that can help you get out of that situation. Whether somebody knows medical, somebody knows, hunting, fishing, whatever, engineering. You need that circle so you, as a black community, can be self-sustainable. I mean, everybody talks about fishing and things like this here. It's great. You now, so when the store's like, we don't have any bread, we don't have any this, you're self-sustainable because somebody in your circle has the skills to do that, and just constantly work on being self, just being, making sure you take care of yourself and your community.
Well, Chef, one thing I learned from you, and I'm going to tell you all of my nuggets that I've learned from you as before I give the floor to Dr. Kane to share his final thoughts. From Jamal, I learned the importance of saving, making sure you put that money aside, have that nest egg just in case, and also learning how to be your own boss and not have to rely on others to determine your fate and helping you to take care of your family. And from Chef, what I learned from you is I need to get outside more and learn how to cook in the yard instead of in my kitchen, and also how to eat less salt.
It's
So that's
helping
something that
JEA. I'm telling you, you learn how to cook outdoors. JEA never touch you.
so we're going to look forward to that camping trip that you're going to coordinate, Chef. And I know there are great places even here in Jacksonville that we can go camping. So we won't have to travel out of city. We'll set up a camping activity locally, and you'll teach us how to cook in the elements. And Lorene, for you, I always love your passion, and I can tell you, Chef, that having worked with Lorene and have known her for so long, she's shown me how to cook different. I've seen Lorene just if you give her some vegetables and some meat, she's gonna whip up a full course meal and don't have some flour around because she's gonna make some kind of something there for you. So I've learned how to take a little bit and make it go far, especially when it comes to fresh vegetables. She's going to tell you, make sure you eat your vegetables, Jocelyn. Consider growing a garden, Jocelyn. So the thing that we talked about tonight is the importance of having people around you to help support you and also to encourage you to do those things that will make you happy and also to help you be the best you that you can be. Dr. Kane, do you have any final thoughts for tonight's show?
Uh, I let me say this. I may want Lorene to teach us a little bit about hydroponics at some point in time, because I think that that helped quite a bit in terms of what we one, save, two, eating healthy, because you can grow most of your own stuff. What I like to say in terms of the guest, that there's three things I learned from all three of them, and that was inclusiveness, the sharing, the willingness they uh, uh, distribute in terms of wanting to share what they have and their knowledge with people, and also they show that they have the sense of responsibility to themselves and to their community. And I like that in all three of our guests, and hope that I can emulate them to the highest accord, and that our audience will do the same in terms of looking at these young folks. I can say it safely, looking at these young folks and learning from them those behaviors. I appreciate each and every last one of you guys for coming on. We expect to hear from you. Chef, you didn't think we'd hear from you that soon, but we will expect to talk to, neither did Lorene for that matter, but we're expecting that we will have all of you guys back. And Jamal, keep up what you're doing. You may need to touch base with me. Let me see what we can do to help your business grow, because we do have an interconnected business field, more or less. So let me know. Let me know if whatever I can do to help.
So,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Kane, I'm sorry I can't end the show by saying, and Jamal, I'll make sure I connect you to Dr. Kane. But as I mentioned earlier, that our mayor tested positive for COVID, can you share your final thoughts with not only our guests, but our listeners about what's happening with the pandemic now and anything different that we need to do?
Well, what we need to do is what's been proven that works. Not looking up something on the internet. Ooh, I almost said that word, internet. Not looking up something on the internet and hopes and listening to some whatever crap that that has no scientific basis and makes no sense. The main thing that we can do is make sure everyone's vaccinated if we can. You know, I know some people are not pro-vaccine, but when it comes down to being vaccinated, it's not only for you, but it's also for your family, your friends, your community. You're exposing other people to a disease or a virus that they may not need to be exposed to. And so by getting vaccinated and contributing to the immunity status of our community, you do great service. Wear your mask. We need to wear the KN95. People need to remember now that the cloth masks and those surgical masks are basically ineffective against Omicron. I can say they're probably better than nothing, but that's not saying a lot. You need to get KN95, at least KN95. N95 works well, but we need to reserve that for our medical community. And Jamal, in your case, you know, you might be, even though you say non-medical transportation, you still have medical people, medical patients and issues right in front of you every day. So I'm going to be probably a little forward in saying this. I'm presuming that you're vaccinated. I'm not asking you to say yes or no, but I'm presuming you're vaccinated because you're going to be protecting your business, your employees, and your clients. So make sure that happens for you and everybody around you. The chef is the same thing for you. When you go anywhere, make sure you protect yourself, mask up, watch the proper hygiene, wear a KN95 at a minimum. And Lorene, Lorene can tell me more than I can tell her right now. So, but that's pretty much what we're looking at. I'm not sure what's the next couple of weeks going to bring with these kids coming back in from their vacation, visiting their grandparents and friends and other parts of the families, and now getting back in that cesspool of germs that kids tend to transmit to each other. I'm hoping that we don't see a large influx of pediatric cases, but I'm just being hopeful on that end. We shouldn't be unexpected. All right.
Well, on that note, thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Kane. Thank you, Chef. Thank you, Dr. Husband. Thank you, Jamal, for your insight. Thank you for sharing your personal and professional experiences. We try to have here on Pause for the Truth podcast shows that are affecting what we call regular folk, things that are happening to people on a daily basis, not just the regular conversations we have. It's not always just about health, even though that's Dr. Kane and my background. We try to talk about all life experiences that people have. So we appreciate the insight that each of you have shared. We will make sure that you all are connected because, as you can tell from the conversations, you did have some interconnectedness. To our listeners, please make sure you visit our website where we will add more information about our guests for those of you who want to get in contact them to support the work that they're doing in the community. And also stay tuned for next week as we continue other discussions. And I believe next week we may even talk about what's currently going on with the pandemic, especially after hearing our mayor testing positive, our children going back to school. Again, as Dr. Kane says, we really don't know what life is going to bring for us next week. But as always, we tell you to please stay safe, stay well, and don't forget to pause for the truth. And we have to give a shout out to our technology guy called Tyrone Jackson, who does the behind the scene work. And in terms of his business, just call Tyrone.net and he'll help you with all of your technology needs. Thank you, as always, for listening to Pause for the Truth, and we'll see you next week.
Good night.